In 1935, just 2 years after alcohol prohibition was lifted in the United States, the moral police were losing their minds over a new menace.
Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell.
Up until the 30s, cannabis was not taken very seriously as a narcotic, until this man, Harry J. Anslinger, launched an all-out campaign against it. Unlike other anti-cannabis figures of his time, who supposedly had economic reasons to criminalize the hemp plant, he openly claimed to be wary of weed because it was smoked by musicians and entertainers, many of whom were black or Latino, and who were enjoying growing popularity with white audiences, especially white female audiences. Deciding that it was cannabis corrupting these young, impressionable minds, he compiled unverified case studies linking smoking weed with violence, insanity, and sexual aggression, and released them to the public as forensic facts. It was these case studies, known as the Gore File, that served as the basis for some of the most unintentionally hilarious movies ever made. These films usually featured picture-perfect American youngsters who are tricked or seduced into smoking weed, after which they promptly launch into uncontrollable depravity, ruining their futures or even their lives.
Oh, Ricky, look out! There's a car coming in!
Watch me give a shave!
Produced both by well-meaning citizens and sleazy producers, these movies about the dangers of marijuana were made by people who had no idea what it was. But the films did play a crucial role in spreading Anslinger's philosophies. For example, marijuana was almost always associated with loud music and wild dancing. A quiet joint to relax was out of the question. 2. Addiction could not be treated. Harsh punishments and severe vigilance were the only answer.
What will happen to her, Doctor? She'll get well, won't she?
Your daughter is a psychopathic case. She is on the verge of insanity. She has marked symptoms of drug addiction, and I strongly believe she has been using marijuana.
What's that?
3. The English name for the drug cannabis already had medicinal connotations. These movies helped Anslinger popularize the Hispanic name marijuana to denote it as foreign and dangerous. 4. A recurring feature of these movies were the rambling monologues directed to the audience.
17 out of 37 of the murderers were addicts of marijuana.
These rants often repeated the words of Anslinger himself from the Gore File as a stern warning to parents and the community.
The next tragedy may be that of your daughter, or your son, or yours, or yours, or yours.
Perhaps the most brutal symbol of this crusade was singer and music legend Billie Holiday, whom Anslinger arrested as she was dying of liver cirrhosis in a hospital. She was handcuffed to her bed and her methadone painkillers were removed. She died a few days later. Anslinger's influence on public perception continued for decades until the American counterculture generation of the 60s. They saw these propaganda films as comedies for their over-the-top nature, bad acting, and poor research. To them, it was further proof that government research was not to be trusted. As a result, marijuana's reputation ironically enjoyed a resurgence during this period. Anslinger himself suffered a mental breakdown, convinced that addiction was contagious and calling for the quarantine of addicts. He died in 1975 riddled with heart issues, addicted to morphine, a drug that he had worked so hard to keep from others. Since then, we've had movies that portray weed in just about every combination, from plot elements to casual smoking. Hollywood has maintained a somewhat rational, even if exaggerated, portrayal of weed. As for the old anti-weed films, they are still quite popular on YouTube and film festivals for their comedic value, of course, as creative disasters. Movies that were once meant to strike fear in the hearts of weed smokers have now become comedic landmarks of stoner cinema.